First Unitarian. We have been looking at the 7, soon-to-be 8 principles of Unitarian Universalism, and I want to thank Erin Kenworthy for the fine job she did last week talking about the 6th principle, the goal of world community with peace, justice, and liberty for all. Number 7, which we're exploring today, is respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part, which is a beautiful thought. And I'm going to approach that beautiful thought from 2 related directions. And that's thinking about the interdependent web, as in how do we think about it, and feeling the interdependent web, which I deeply hope you have done at some point in your life, in your body, and your soul. There are beautiful models and metaphors for thinking about the interdependent web, and students of religion will recognize that the concept of that interdependent web originates in Eastern spiritual traditions like Hinduism, Buddhism, and Taoism, much more than in Judeo-Christianity. And maybe the most famous metaphor for the interdependent web comes from the Avatamsaka Sutra from East Asian Buddhism. Here's a relevant portion of the sutra translated by Francis Cook. Far away, in the heavenly abode of the great god Indra, there is a wonderful net which has been hung by some cunning artificer in such a manner that it stretches out indefinitely in all directions. In accordance with the extravagant tastes of deities, the artificer has hung a single glittering jewel at the net's every node. And since the net itself is infinite in dimension, the jewels are infinite in number. There hang the jewels, glittering like stars of the first magnitude, a wonderful sight to behold. If we now arbitrarily select one of these jewels for inspection and look closely at it, we will discover that in its polished surface, there are reflected all the other jewels in the net, infinite in number. Not only that, but each of the jewels reflected in this one jewel is also reflecting all the other jewels, so that the process of reflection is infinite. So like all good metaphors, right, you can unpack this one for a lifetime. I'll just scratch the surface of it. The individual jewels could represent atoms or molecules, which are in fact connected and in ways we barely understand, and not just metaphorically. The jewels could represent every distinct thing in the universe, every discrete object, every star, every starfish, every galaxy, every billy goat. Thich Nhat Hanh wrote of how there are clouds in every piece of paper. No clouds, no rain, no trees, no paper. The paper and the clouds are inextricably interrelated, their individual essences reflected in and fully present in and within each other. Along, of course, with the sun and the soil, the atmosphere, the birds and bugs who carried the tree seeds, the people who harvested the trees and processed the paper, and all the other people, processes, materials, and energy that went into transforming clouds into paper. You get the idea. The individual jewels could be people, you and me, and farmers in Indonesia, and midwives in ancient Mesopotamia, Homo erectus on the plains of Africa, and all of our ancestors crawling out of the primordial swamp. Extend the metaphor in both temporal directions, and other jewels in the net are all our future descendants, layers upon layers, generations we will never meet and can only imagine. More, the image of the net kind of demonstrates how karma works. Everything you do, everything you think affects everything else. The reverberations of selfishness, hate, exclusion, or harm travel through the web, become part of the infinite reflections that make up the whole, just as your kindness, compassion, love, generosity of spirit reverberate through every strand, every node, changing the nature of the net itself. In Indra's net, we glimpse the spiritual truth that the universe is paradoxically infinitely individualistic, an infinite number of finite individual jewels, utterly unique, existing once and only once in all of space and time, and simultaneously infinitely connected. Everything, part of a larger unity, each jewel containing the whole containing each individual jewel. Changes in one jewel are felt or reflected in every other jewel. Tug on any particular strand and the entire fabric is affected. Deeper still, the jewels are clear, demonstrating the illusory nature of the self. You, I, we, consciousness itself. We are merely reflections, shaped by our local environment, limited by language, by the needs and hungers of our bodies, the tugs and strains of our individual lives and desires, all of it ultimately empty. And to realize this fully, to give up your empty self, to internalize beyond consciousness your own nature, that not only are you connected to the entire universe, you are the entire universe, and the entire universe is you, and so is everything else. To get this is to become enlightened. Millions of people over thousands of years, mesmerized by the beauty of this vision, have given up everything to pursue this awareness. On and on we could go. We've barely scratched the surface, unpacking the profundity of the beautiful web of Indra. Here at First Unitarian Denver, one of our banners, there's a unity that makes us one. Speaks to the spiritual truths indicated by Indra's web. When people ask about that banner, I usually answer by saying, if I have enough time anyway, that we come from a spiritual tradition, Unitarianism, whose core proposition is that whatever God is, whatever the nature of the divine, whatever language you want to assign to the mystery at the heart of the universe, in our tradition we say that's best represented by a unity rather than by a trinity. And I say we're modern people too, right? We don't need to rely on 2,000-year-old theology that tells us the divine is out there somewhere, and we, trapped in the physical world, irreparably fallen, are separated from the divine. Modern theology, right? We've learned a few things in 2,000 years. Modern theology tells us that whatever the divine is, whatever the nature of the mystery at the heart of the universe, you can't pull it apart from the manifestation. You can argue it, right, till you're blue in the face, but existentially, experientially, the divine is here. It's woven into the fabric of everything. Either that or there is no divine. And, I say, if I have enough time, right, and we live in a world where our best and brightest minds are telling us that experimentally, physically, our very best understanding of the universe is that the whole thing, every iota of space and time and matter, can be understood as overlapping fields of energy. Every molecule, every thought, every feeling, everything, overlapping fields of energy in the universe itself, a field of possibility into which who knows what might emerge, like maybe you or me. And you and I, every one of us, also individual fields of possibilities, and who knows what beautiful human being you are still becoming. That's why we sing every single Sunday that behind all our differences and beneath all our diversity, there's a unity that makes us one and binds us forever together throughout all time, through life and death, and the space between the stars. Beautiful. So far, we've been talking about the interconnected web, using Indra's web as an extended metaphor. But what does the interconnected web feel like? How does a person actually experience the truth of the interconnected web? I'll share just one personal story. Perhaps the most powerful memory that I carry is from a trip in northern Wisconsin when I was a teenager. I had gone off by myself into Newport State Park for the afternoon. I don't remember where my family was, but I was about as independent a kid as you could find, and I don't remember anyone being concerned. It was one of those perfect late summer afternoons in the Midwest, and I was having a ball. And at some point, deep in the forest, well off any trails, I sat down on a log, and it was luminous. Sunlight dappling through the trees, ferns and moss and pine needles covering the ground, and I suddenly realized I was hearing something I had never heard before. It was completely silent. No traffic in the distance, no appliances humming anywhere, no airplanes droning, not even a breeze to ruffle the leaves. Now, I was a kid from the city. I'd never heard anything like this before. And I kept perfectly still and focused all my attention on listening, and I don't know how to fully describe. But it was like the whole world opened up. And I swear, to this day, I swear I could hear the tiny movements of ants burrowing in the soil beneath me. I could pinpoint the whistle of air beneath the wings of a bird 100 yards away through the trees. I could hear the delicate, incredibly delicate sounds, the fibers of my shirt as they ever so slightly bent and stretched with each rising and falling of my breath. And I closed my eyes, and for some time that was just suspended right there in the forest, I saw the forest through my ears and skin. And what had seemed so perfectly still and silent and serene was anything but. It was like this, I felt like this cacophony, this jaw-dropping cacophony of living vibrations and energy. It was everywhere. It was everything. It was life, but it was bigger than life. It was matter, but it was bigger than matter. And I was here, but I was everywhere. And I understood with this thunderstruck, really, with awareness of how every last vestige of everything I was and everything I could see and had ever seen was so fleeting that every particular was meaningless taken by itself. And in my mind's eye, I saw the forest through time speeded up 100 times, 1,000,000 times. I felt trees shoot up out of the ground, fall over, decay, and disappear back into the soil again. And in a flash, and oceans and ice ages came and went like breezes over the water. I saw the whole planet just coalesce and form out of random matter and spin frantically around the sun for a moment and vanish like smoke on a galactic wind. I can't even really describe what happened. Words just don't do it, but I do remember clearly that several things became clear, absolutely crystal clear to me in that afternoon. Every last molecule of the present, everything was infinitely insignificant. Simultaneously, the whole picture was absolutely dependent on every minute particle. Everything human was only human, having no meaning whatsoever to the universe at large. And at the same time, everything that was human, love and loss and striving and rest and achievement and failure and war and peace, every nuance of every emotion was every bit as real and every bit as important as anything could ever be. And most importantly, everything was exactly, precisely, exquisitely, perfectly the way it was supposed to be. Right then and forever. Even as I say these words, I'm mostly aware of what I cannot relate about that day. The way that one afternoon has informed my life at every level, the feeling of it, the possibilities that were opened for the growth of my spirit that day, I can tell you I have lived my life completely unafraid of death because of that afternoon. And really, truthfully, every significant choice or decision I've ever made, from dropping out of high school to getting married to becoming a minister to having children, has been informed by and made in the context of that experience. I have not told that story or shared this experience because I think it was unique in any way, or that I am unique in any way. I really do believe this. I think most everyone has had moments like this. You will have had your own. I know this because many of you have shared some of your transcendent moments with me. I think we have to consider maybe a human being is more than the flesh and bone that we can see and touch. It's a scientific fact that at the atomic and quantum level, it is impossible to tell where the flesh of your body stops and the space beyond it begins. All matter, all thought, all emotion, all electricity, all of everything are just manifestations of energy in endlessly overlapping, interlocking fields of mutual influence and relationship. An interconnected web of all existence of which we are an inevitable and inextricable part. And I'll close with this thought, which is that the wisdom literature of the ages, the Bible, Jesus, the Quran, Allah, the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, the Avatamsaka Sutra, Sufi poetry, the Midrash, the Hadith, indigenous rituals, centuries of sacred poetry in different languages and different imagery. All of these are just about unanimous in trying to communicate, to get through our thick skulls, that the way to access the unity, the interconnected web, the way to express the unity, the interconnected web, the way to live into the unity, into the interconnected web, is compassion and it's love. That's it. That's the message. That's the meaning. And that is my wish for all of you on this beautiful, interconnected Mother's Day. Amen.